So my number one film that shaped my view of America, nice patriotic title here, Born on the 4th of July, in came out in 1989, directed by Oliver Stone, starring Tom Cruise, Kira Sedgwick, and Willem Dafoe. The plot summary, the biography of Ron Kovac. Paralyzed in the Vietnam War, he becomes an anti-war and pro-human rights political activist after feeling betrayed by the country which he fought for. And this is a film that I saw in high school. And for me, what this movie really helped do for me was kind of redefine or maybe better define like what that blind patriotism wasn't the only kind of patriotism. And just because you have disagreements with your country, I'll just say your country, and even the government of that country that, first of all, doesn't represent what the people want, and that you can still have a certain respect and love for your country while disagreeing with it at the same time and disagreeing with the actions at the same time. Basically, Ron Kovac's whole arc that they capture so well in this film. So I'll kind of pause there before getting more into this, and just curious if you'd seen the film before and what your thoughts on it are.
Yeah, I seen it before a few years ago, but it was really well, fun is not the best word for it, but it was really a good experience, I should say, to watch it again after many, many years. First of all, this is such a great Tom Cruise performance.
Incredible performance by Tom. Yeah.
Really good. You see like the whole arc of this person. And yeah, the themes that we've been touching on throughout, right? Like that sort of Americana marketed version, things are fine, the small town where they grew up in all the dynamics with the mother and the father, and how kids are sort of propped up, and it's American, but it's also sort of pretty universal, right? That your parents sort of live through you and push you, but they also can sometimes put you on a pedestal that you probably shouldn't have been put to begin with. So in fact, that to me was the thing that I was seeing more of this time on this watch of, yes, it's about America and patriotism and those themes, but it's actually very much about family and growing up as well. It's a very sort of parent-child movie as well. Like those seeds are sown at the very beginning. And you could argue those parents are also maybe caught up in the marketing of the country, and that's why they were doing what they were doing. Or like most parents, they were doing their best,
Right.
of what they knew. And those seeds were sown right then. And then everything that unfolds, you can kind of date it back to that. In whichever country, of course,
Right.
things are heightened and a lot more happens. So yeah, that's the part that struck me more this time. But everything else you said about the blind patriotism, the heartbreak that happens with that, how you get disillusioned, the cost of war. Shameless plug, we did an episode on war earlier, a couple of months ago. This is definitely very much, dead center in those themes as well. Like, why are we even here fighting this war?
Yeah, the veteran hospital scenes in this movie are just so
Oh,
horrifying. And you know that that's still probably the case, unfortunately, not just in the United States, but I'll just speak in the US. I just don't think we treat the veterans of people that have already made that decision, even if it was maybe the wrong one, you disagree with it. They made it and now they're back. And I just was crazy just in the last couple years, just seeing how hard it was to get a bill passed around giving victims of the Iraq war. There's some burn pits that they were next to and horrible health issues. And the government just refused to pay for any of it. And it's like, guys, like, yeah, the war was wrong, but
yeah.
they went and now they have all these issues. Like, we can't help them out. So those scenes are just so terrible when you see what he was going through, because he does get paralyzed and in
Yeah.
the hospital in New York. And it's just really horrifying stuff that Tom does a great job in acting. I think also credit to Oliver Stone, too, who was also a veteran. He fought in the Vietnam War,
Mhm.
of not shying away from any of that stuff. He's really just shining a light on how terrible that is. And it's not some, you know, great sacrifice where you feel good about if you get injured in
No.
war. I mean, you maybe feel that a little bit, but you have to deal with the real world cost of the fact that you're now in a wheelchair, and then going back to his family and all the issues that they then have of him getting situated into this new life of now being handicapped because of that decision he made. But it wasn't even that, though, that got him disillusioned. I mean, that's what this movie is so interesting in terms
Mhm.
of the track of his life. He's still saying that whole, like, America, love it or leave it, sitting there in the wheelchair. And that's still what he believed. And in this film, too, like, he leaves the country and goes off to Mexico when he
Yeah.
gets really disillusioned with it. He does get angry at how they treated him, and he leaves and he goes off to this weird sort of drug induced I won't use the word paradise, but sort of like retreat of all these other injured veterans. And he's getting a lot of drugs and a lot of women, a lot of alcohol. And he just sort of lost in that because he decided to leave the country. And then it's when he realized, no, I'm going to go back and then start actually voicing my voice and trying to be someone enacting change of things I don't believe in and not just give up on the country and run away from it. I mean, that is really powerful too, because that is honestly, like, in my view, that's a harder and more patriotic thing to do, to not give up and to realize, I'm going to sit here, I'm going to fight for the things that I believe in, even if the country doesn't and the government doesn't, but I'm going to still do that because I do care at the end of the day. And, I've definitely been against a lot of the things that we've done as a country, protested the Iraq war when it was going on, very much against that. But I didn't give up in the sense of like I left. Like, no, I was like doing what I could as a college kid at that time to push back. And that is, I don't view that as anti-American or non-patriotic. It's a more powerful form of that expression.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that value, like we've talked before, even with All the President's Men, that to me is also very American, that you can take those matters in your own hands and do something about it. There's something entrepreneurial about that. And in most places that doesn't exist. You just, sign up with the herd and just stay there. The cost of standing out is much, much higher in other parts of the world.
That is definitely true, though. I do feel like the whole love it or leave it thing it's not like that's not used here. That's used here all the time. Like I've been said that people have said that to me over the years too. And it's like, well, no, I think it's actually stronger that you're not just kind of giving up. You're fighting for these things. And I think it really just shows Ron going through this whole experience where in the very beginning, it was all gung-ho. And I think Stone does a great job too with capturing that Americana, similar to like Blue Velvet in the opening couple shots or scenes of this idyllic, everything's great. He's got a high school, he's got his wrestling team, everything's kind of fine. And he then still wants to go off and fight his country and then comes back and it's not fine anymore. And it's still hard, but that doesn't mean he's given up, even though he does give up for that brief period of time. But that's a huge lesson for him, I think, to learn of like, no, I'm going to go back and fight for what I
would argue that things are actually not great even in the beginning if you look for them. And that's sort of the genius of it all, because he's actually not very good. He's second place.
That's true. You're right. That motivation to him to join the military. Yeah.
And even at sports and whatever things he's doing, it's not great. The parade at the beginning, all those veterans who are touted up, you can see they're miserable. And it's not like everybody is happily, ignorantly cheering them. They show baby Ron, kid Ron, look at them and be a little bit distressed because he can see that all these veterans are kind of bothered by the sounds of the cameras and the guns and everything. So it's actually not all fine. It wasn't even then.
Yeah, there's hints of that. That's a really good point. Right, that parade scene in the beginning where, and then he's in that situation later in the movie too, where he starts having visions, flashbacks. Which I'm sure happens to most veterans. Those were some of the most heartbreaking
scenes to me, actually. Just being propped up like that and being so miserable and hollow, and you have no direction. What's going to happen? You've given the sacrifice. Your life has totally changed for things that, choices you made, but also choices that you didn't make. You never, those were the parts that really broke my heart. Even this time, I was watching this on a flight and tearing up.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of that I think is to Ron's life story is very inspiring, but I think just Tom does such a good job of going through that journey and taking you on that, where in the beginning it is like he's like, I'll do any sacrifice, I don't care, I'll die for the country, like that's more blind patriotism side of things. And then when he goes through that transformation and realizes that he's now fighting for what he believes in, and that is what's giving him that purpose. After he was hollowed out, I think that's what the Mexico sequence is, really just the hollowest he can be. I mean, he's just there, just getting sensory pleasures, and it's not doing anything for him. It's once he realizes that he has to fight for something, which I do think is, to your point, part of like America too. I think the fact that you can do these things and protest your government, even though it might not do anything, which is annoying, but at least you're able to do that without any at least government consequences. I mean, there's social consequences, and people were attacking him even in the film when he was turning against the Vietnam War. But I think that is a thing that I value in America for sure. The fact that you can do this.
You can.
And exactly. That's important. And he actually, I saw him speak in my college, and I lived in London for a bit when I was in college, and I participated in an Iraq war protest that he actually led, which was cool. Like just seeing him still out there. He's not just the Vietnam thing. He protested the Gulf War. And again, like I said, the Iraq War. So he really, this is his core belief. And he's still trying to get the message out there of, you know, the wrong things that this country is doing. I think that's also really admirable that's still it's not just personal. It's just his war. It's all these wars and all these horrible things that we're doing. He's standing up against them.
That's pretty amazing. But as a movie too, no surprise, every Oliver Stone movie looks amazing. It's brilliantly made. I mean, Oliver Stone is nothing but subtle. So there's definitely that. It's a lot of broad strokes. It's a lot of things on the nose. A great score, but I that was the one thing that I kept thinking of, that I wish there was like a variation to the main theme. Because there was, in my mind, there was room to sort of play with that. Again, it's with the broad stroke stuff. You know how I feel about that. So it's like, no, we don't need this theme repeated like 2 million times. We could have used this sparingly to kind of really underline where it needed to be. Look at me giving notes to John Williams.
Yeah.
Shut up.
What's actually funny on this rewatch, like the score stood out to me, and I actually listened to it afterwards.
It's very good. I
don't remember the score being this good. It was just one of his better, like late. I usually don't think about this movie when I think of John Williams' sort of later career, but I mainly that one theme that I was like, yeah, I'll listen to that over and over again. But yeah, I mean, the movie I think is one of Oliver Stone's strongest. On every level it works, and I think a lot of the credit does also go to Tom's performance, just kind of carrying this thing through.
It's good use of him, because he also is like that, like sort of dogged commitment, and I'll do whatever it takes, and in fact then it subverts it, and there's disillusionment, but then this dogged pursuit of this other thing, right? That's also kind of for the right stuff, but kind of crazy.
Right.
So it's crazy on both sides, actually. I don't know much about the real guy, but at least in this performance, it's from one extreme to the other extreme, which is sort of how Tom is too.
Right. Yeah, that's a great use of Tom. Like, Tom is not that subtle either.
No.
So you use him in these ways, he can really deliver a great performance. Again, I think this is one of his best, easily. Oscar nominated, didn't win, but I think this is one of his best performances.
Yeah, I would agree.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.